This video was made with no endorsements. These are just items I recommend you get before or shortly after you get into this hobby. Hey guys, today I want to talk about everything you need to make your own mealworm farm, from supplies and tools to the animals and what you keep them in. This video should cover just about everything you could need. I will have a link in the description below to my Amazon storefront, which will have every item listed in this video, along with my eBay store that has a few mesh bottom enclosures on it, so if you don't feel like making one yourself, you can pick one up for me. And with that out of the way, let's start the video. Let's start right now with safety. You need a mask, period. When dealing with these animals, their waste, known as frass, is very fine and can get up into the air when moved around, like when put through a sifter or stirred up with your hands. It's like dust, it will get into the air. We want to try and limit touching, breathing, and in general, getting this stuff on us. It's impossible, trust me. But the key is to limit our exposure and handle it either outside or in a well-ventilated area, but preferably outside. Gloves will help with your hands, but you need to use a mask. I suggest an N95 as it will offer good filtration and stop the stuff from getting into your lungs. It's very important because you can develop an allergy to their frass over time, which can cause itching or even other negative reactions. It's not 100% gonna happen, but you need to take the right steps to keep yourself protected. Limit your exposure to their frass and wear a mask whenever you are dealing with it. I know you guys never see me using gloves. I know the risk is there, but be better than me. Next, we need an enclosure. Your choice of regular bins or a mesh bottom setup. Since we covered this in the last video, link in the card above, we will leave it at that, an enclosure of your choosing. If you do go with making your own 3-tier, you're going to need a roll of mesh screen, a hot knife gun, a hot glue gun, and scissors. All 4 of these are a must-have. These will make the process a lot easier. Normal replacement screen for windows will be fine enough to let the larva and frass pass through, but not most of the larger substrate. I have linked the roll with the correct size holes. Then you need something to cut it with. Most scissors will work for this. Use the hot knife to cut a hole in the bottom of the enclosure, hot glue the screen in, and you are done. If you are not making a mesh bottom enclosure, you can still use the hot gun to cut fairly large windows towards the tops of your bins, slap a lid on them, and stack them. This will allow for good airflow to prevent mold and save on room. Everything after this I suggest for both types of setups. Next, we need to figure out the best substrate we can get our hands on. Depending where you live, it might be oats, it might be wheat bran. Those are your 2 most common substrates, though there are other mediums that can be used. I'm going to stick with what is most common and what I have personally used myself. I suggest wheat bran mostly for the price and finer consistency. If you go with oats, I suggest grinding them into a powder. The smaller pieces will make it easier when it comes to harvesting larvae from the substrate. The oats as they are insanely large compared to mealworms, and it will take them a while to eat it. This makes it easier for them to eat and easier on you. I also suggest wheat bran over oats due to the ability to get it in bulk. If you have a feed store near you, you can buy 25 to 50 pound bags of wheat bran for $16 to $32. That's generally what it is at my store. Oats can be more costly overall, but I guess the upside is that you can find them in any grocery store. Both are good choices, and it will suit its purpose as a medium for our larvae to live in and eat. Now we just need a freezer of some sort. It could be a home fridge freezer, however I do suggest using a deep freezer to treat the substrate before use. This is an absolute must to avoid a grain mite infestation. I suggest filling gallon Ziploc freezer bags with the grain and placing them in the freezer. Once the bags have sat for a few days in the freezer, I normally do 3 days. You can then safely store the bag of grain in a dry location, ready for future use. Another must-have tool is a good set of sifters. You do not need to buy an expensive set. You can get away with something that is around $20 on Amazon. Something with 3mm apertures to catch larger worms, but still allow the smaller ones to pass through and allow them more time to grow. It is also extremely useful to catch the beetles and allow the substrate to fall through while changing out your beetle substrate and harvesting their eggs. A flour sifter can be used to separate some of the smaller worms from frass. You will always have some mealworms in your frass, as a flour sifter will not completely solve the issue, but it will help you get most of them out, and then once they have grown in size, it will catch the rest. A good optional tool to have is some kind of mister, and it sort of requires an explanation, so bear with me. You could use a spray bottle, or something with a pump to save your hand. This can be used to lightly mist the substrate. Lightly mist it. I know it sounds like a bad idea, but stay with me. You can mist the substrate lightly. Do not keep a lid on it. Your mealworms will be attracted to the moist substrate and they will start eating it for the water it has absorbed. You are basically force feeding the mealworms substrate when you do this. It works extremely well for tiny mealworms as it gives them the much needed moisture they need to grow. Using veggies doesn't always feed all of them. This will. I'll show an example. Watch how the mealworms are calm, and as soon as I spray the substrate, they start to become lively almost in unison. What makes this okay and safe to do is as long as you don't overdo it, and I mean don't make puddles, guys. That's really all you don't have to do. Between the mealworms and the water evaporating, the wheat bran will dry within a few hours. This does not give mold enough time to take root. Just do not put a lid on the bin if you do this. As I said, this tool is completely optional. I do this. You can skip it altogether if you feel unsure. Just see how they react yourself and try a small section to see what I mean. And since we just got done talking about a hydration item, I suggest water beads for beetles. This will always ensure there is a moisture source for the beetles and they will drink or eat as needed. And no, it causes no harm to them. You can add more water once they have dried out and keep reusing them. While I currently do not use this item, as my project is aimed to be on a larger scale, this would add a lot of work to maintain. But if you are getting started, these can help provide peace of mind knowing that everybody is getting the water they need. You need a little dish to put them in. I highly suggest something from a dollar store. I'll put an image up of what I used for a few seconds before moving on to the next items. You will basically only ever need to grab one bag of these water beads, as there are thousands upon thousands of them, and they're fairly cheap. Our next tool, I think, is a must-have. A simple set of tongs. The set I got came as a pack of two, one with curved ends and one with straight. These will mostly be used for picking up live beetles and pupa. They do have other uses in the hobby, such as feeding your pet or even selecting the largest mealworms to feed instead of grabbing them with your hands. I personally find it a little frustrating to try and pick up the biggest ones, so I just use my tongs. And for the last tool, which is semi-optional, and I only suggest this if you intend to really get into this hobby and deal with bulk production, is a Pupa Sifter. I use the metal one on Amazon that fits inside of a standard 5-gallon bucket, and it's very durable. I have had it for a few years now. It is extremely easy to use, and my goodness does it make life so much easier when you are dealing with a lot of pupa at once. This will catch nearly 100% of them. The ones that do pass through will either be damaged or are abnormally small, but it is otherwise extremely effective. And as I said, this item is purely optional. It will save you time. The other option is using a set of tongs to pick the pupa out one by one, and then pick the beetles out one by one after they hatch. This tool effectively removes one step, but it is a little pricey, and I did it the other way for well over a year. Last, we need some mealworms. You can get them almost anywhere. Do not buy giant mealworms. They will literally say giant mealworms. Also, not superworms. Superworms are a different species. Giant mealworms will not become beetles because of a hormone treatment. Anyhow, online, a local breeder, or a pet store, you can start with any amount. The more, the faster your colony will grow. If you want to see if you can handle it, start with maybe 1 to 200 mealworms. If you want to hit the ground running, start with about 5,000 or more. And that about wraps it up, guys. I highly suggest every item on this list, and having everything beforehand will make life simple. Again, I have a link in the description that has every item on one page from Amazon if you choose to go the online route. I have always been a minimalist when it comes to this. I only get what I absolutely need, and I try to stay on the cheaper end of things. Over the years, I have picked up more and more tools, and they have made my life easier. Not absolutely everything is required. You guys can get away without a Pupa Sifter. It's just a lot of work without one. Same goes for a sifter set. It can be done without it. Your life will just be a lot easier with it, and it's more than worth the initial investment. These are just my suggestions. If you like this video and have it in your critter-loving heart, give this video a like, a subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more videos in the future like this. And as always, from the Thegizards and I, have a wonderful day.